I think, here we go, we're recording. I think Cindy needs to go over some things real quick. We've been reviewing some things that the township needs for next week. So I just want to have her jump in real quick.
Well, actually, Holly, did you want to do the input first? Is that from the surveys and stuff?
Yes.
Right, is that okay, Cindy? Go ahead and do that first, if
Okay.
that's okay, because I'm dying to know.
Yes, let's do that. Sorry, Larry. We're just going to get into some meat and potatoes that are part of the agenda, but we'll loop back. Let's start with a public input.
Okay. All right, Emily is sharing her screen. And so I don't know if you all got this in advance in time to review this, but this is the summary of the public meeting survey results. So basically we had 53 surveys. There were 52 turned in at the meeting Tuesday night, and then one followed up from the township. So we got all the results from all 53 included. And we did break them by segment. We also provided, and it's in your packet, all of the individual results. So you're welcome to go through those, because obviously it's very hard to do a summary of, responses to 53 survey results. But I think we did a pretty fair job of this. So
We lost you. We lost you, Larry.
Well, it's on the screen, Holly. Everyone, I read it ahead, but we could run through it ourselves if we lost Larry.
Larry?
Yes.
We're losing your audio.
Okay, Emily, can you go through this?
Emily, you're muted.
Zoom. So much fun.
Sorry about that. So between Washington Street and Lake Street, between the 3-lane configuration and the 2-lane, 35 people were in favor of the 2-lane configuration and 12 were in favor of the 3-lane. So that was interesting. And then what was interesting, of course, is the people that it was the traffic. A lot of times people wanted the traffic signal or they didn't want a traffic signal. So that, you have to sort of take that with a grain of salt a little bit. If there's anything else in particular that came out. They thought that 2-lane was more aesthetically pleasing as well. And then from Lake Street to Maple Street, the choices between the at-grade boardwalk and the median section with the curb and gutter, we had about 30 in favor of the at-grade boardwalk and retaining wall section versus the median with the curb and gutter with just 11.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly the biggest difference was that there was more separation. It was more appealing. They thought it would be a safer route. And then the other two sections, there weren't as many choices. There weren't any choices, but there were comments. They thought that it looked good. There were more talks about an additional traffic signal at Old Allegan, which isn't isn't something we can make a decision on. And same with North Street to Holland. People seem to like the plan and people just are excited to get it done. So that's what I took out of it. I don't know, does anyone else have any additional comments?
I just want to thank everybody. I thought it was excellent. We had about twice the turnout we expected. The response was very enthusiastic. We still have public input set up at the library until Wednesday, the 1st.
Hmm.
We have all of the same boards that show the routes that we had at Isabel's. And we have the forms to fill out and also the handouts that show the routes. So if you have folks that were unable to make it to the open house, they still have an opportunity to fill out forms.
The other thing I thought was interesting, that's not in the summary that Larry provided, but if you looked at this, where people came from, because we did ask if they were from the city of Douglas or the city of Saugatuck or the township or somewhere else, and it was pretty evenly spaced. There were 12 from Douglas, 13 from Saugatuck City, 15 from the township, and then 12 other. So I thought that was a good mixture and showed it wasn't really just in favor of one community or the other. It was everybody was there. So.
Mhm. Brenda, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to add that really the enthusiasm of people, even as they just came to check in, was palpable. And I got several comments as people were leaving after they filled out the questionnaire saying, just get it done. So I'm just passing that on to you.
Yeah, I would agree. I had a few people that said to me, that said, whatever you can, everybody will agree on, just do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people, I mean, I agree with you. I think it was palpable. I think, we all heard get it done, over and over and over again. And they showed up with their feet, they.
Yep.
I got the message received.
I don't, Larry, if you're there, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I missed part of that. I think I might be better connected now. So hopefully, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. You guys aren't locking up so much. So, okay. All I would go back to say, and I'm not sure you talked about this, but obviously we kind of had like 3-to-1 favoring the 2-lane over the 3-lane. But I think that's heavily influenced by just the desire for a traffic signal and not related specifically to the trail. So you need to keep that in mind, because when we get a little later on and we look at funding, then that's where it becomes key, because it's significantly more local share cost if you do include the traffic signal. And so we'll have to have that discussion about, if that's the choice, what do we do about funding, and is there sufficient funding to fund everything that you want to do at this time? So that will be key. So it was good input to that regardless, but it's really hard to filter out what is chosen just because of the desire for a traffic signal versus the real 2-lane versus 3-lane. And I did hear Chief Janik again at the meeting. He was there and he did provide his viewpoint again, is that they are fully supportive and highly desirable of the 3-lane option, and are still open to the 2-lane with the traffic signal if that is what's chosen, that they could support that. So, all right, does that kind of cover everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Cindy.
Thanks, Holly. Before we get into funding, I do have some concerns, like you said in the beginning, that we need to talk about. I think it's very important for us to know in the township when that grant application is due. We have very limited number of meetings between now and October where we can approve things. And we haven't really even talked about writing the report that we're supposed to submit to our local municipalities. And I'd like to propose that Joe go ahead and write that report based on what we discussed. There might be some things missing that we have to have, but that's gonna really hold us up. If we could have the deadline of the grant, we could know exactly how many meetings we have between now and then. That would be really helpful.
Okay,
And Can I,
yes, go ahead.
can I add? So in regards to that, and this is going to kind of touch on the next two items on the agenda, if I can do that. The joint resolution that we all endorsed or signed, we still have some questionable areas. So I just wanted to address them really quick. Joe has helped us. He's been working on, a proposal or agreement anyway. So here's what we're still struggling with. You remember there's the 5A through H. So here's what we have. We have 5C, the responsibility for bidding and awarding the contracts. We would like to contact the Community Foundation to act as the fiduciary to hold the funds. And then the maintenance. We all love that, don't we? So my understanding is instead of a council now, the three entities would like to do their own maintenance. So I wanted to make sure that that was true in order to get that included in the report. And then the local match, since we don't have a copy of the application, I have no idea what they want. We would like to suggest that each community contributes 10,000 towards the match. Now I realize we're a little bigger. And so that's just one of the things that we would like to do. And I know that it's really important in a grant application to have a match in most, but I have no clue what they want or if they would want to see something from all three communities. That's really worth knowing. And does anybody have a copy of it? Emily, do you?
Are you asking for a copy of?
The grant application? Is it all online or is it a packet or?
Oh, so there's multiple grants. The Transportation Alternative Fund grant, which is the larger of the grants through MDOT, is due October 13th.
Okay.
So that's where we've been in sort of, that was always the goal when C2AE was brought on board, was to get the grant in by that deadline. So that's been on the table. There is a packet of what you need. And that I can send you a link to it. It's like this. They have a.
That'd be great.
I can send you a link to that. And so yes.
Thank you.
Can you send it to all of us?
Why don't I send it to you, Holly, and you can send it out to everyone?
Okay. Yep, that would be fine. And I know we're jumping around a little bit here, but
And Joe, did I get the important points? Or Cindy?
Yeah, we were all talking in anticipation, because at the last meeting, a couple of the items we're talking about was the maintenance. Emily brought up the maintenance portion in that match, and we wanted to make sure that we understood where we are currently in the picture and make sure that for us, we aren't missing anything as we go forward, because we want to keep the ball rolling and we don't want it, because of meeting deadlines, to be missed. So one of the questions for the maintenance agreement, Holly reached out to me and got a copy of an interlocal, which in essence just states that each jurisdiction is responsible for its portion of the trail. We're fine with that. And it might be good for the grant application that we actually have that formal, that paperwork just to say, yep, we're doing it for the grantors. But one of the things is within the interlocal for the match, so when the grant does come, we all know we don't have to figure this out down the line. We already know, we all agree to this number that we're going to put in and ante up.
And I just want to be clear to everybody that the reason we're jumping on this in the beginning of the meeting is because I believe the township meets once a month and your next meeting is September 8th. Is that correct?
Yep, so our next meeting is September 8th.
Mhm.
So,
And September 3rd is your cutoff for the materials that are included in that date, which is a week from today.
yep.
So
And, so,
that's why we're having this whole conversation right now. We've got some boilerplate maintenance agreements going back and forth. And Joe and Brenda and Cindy are trying to sort of, keep us moving so that we can hit that September 8th deadline once a month for.
So, Holly, can I jump in here with a concern?
Absolutely.
It's kind of hard to expect our governance bodies to approve accepting the maintenance agreement without knowing what that cost might be. I don't know what it is we're maintaining. I mean, it could be very substantial or not, but I wouldn't recommend that someone just blindly make a commitment that we're gonna cover all the maintenance.
Well,
so
I would agree.
can
there
I,
are standards. There are standards for maintenance, and Larry can give us some feedback. There are costs associated with whatever type of trail that you have.
Well, we don't know how much infrastructure there's gonna be. So if we end up going from Lake Street to Maple Street and it's all bridge work, that's a significantly higher maintenance cost than just restriping the road, as an example.
That's true. And that is the beauty of having an engineer, because they will be able to provide us with a framework for what those costs are. And we are also looking at maintenance agreements right now. So what did you want to say, Joe?
so, let me make sure I can address, I think it was Ken Custer and, oh, my thing moved. And I can't remember the lady from Douglas.
Kathy.
Kathy.
Yeah.
I think you both touched on those costs, because that is one concern for us too, as the trail, a big portion of it is in our jurisdiction, but the interlocal agreement that we are talking about proposing is that to simplify things, that each jurisdiction just simply takes care of, the bridge or trail that is in their jurisdiction. So all the trail that is in the township, we take care of. Everything that's in Saugatuck, you guys take care of, and Douglas does the same. So that we don't have to negotiate a very long, detailed maintenance. It's simply you and your DPW take care of your section and we take care of ours. And then a part of it, each kind of community would then retain its independence to pick exactly, like, if Saugatuck wants to put in a paved path versus a bridge, well, then you guys can do such and maintain it as such. And we can choose as the township what we do when we get to the construction and bidding, because we still have to put in the grant. So we have quite a ways to pick the construction. But the grant will require us to have something hashed out, and this allows us to do that and meet that maintenance agreement. Yep, we all agree and maintain it, but the actual product that we're using will change a little bit, but we have the general cost. Hopefully it answers everyone's question.
Okay. That sounds,
I'd like to say something.
yes, Kathy?
Well, I am totally in agreement with what you just said. I always thought it was going to be each city did their own maintenance and prorated by feet or whatever, if there was a general cost. So I'm a little confused by this because you could have one committee, one group, all three for the grant purposes and show we're in this together, but it still can be designed and prorated, which comes out to be the same thing as if we each did our own section. So where I'm confused is Brenda's comment about the local match, that each municipality does 10,000. I'm not quite sure where that comes in. I need an explanation of the grant in that way. I mean, if maintenance is maintenance, what's the local match have to do with? I need help.
I mean, I can let Emily and Larry jump in, but I think we're talking about two different things.
Yeah.
That's what I think I'm confused about. Okay.
What we're talking about is we're hitting some bullet items from our resolution that form this committee. And so we're sort of getting down to the nitty gritty now. We're talking about, we have to have a maintenance agreement that's in our resolution. But another thing that Emily touched on was that we needed to have basically some skin in the game to MDOT. So each community would need to decide how much they want.
Sorry.
So each community
Sorry.
would just need to decide how much they wanted to put in for a local match. And I'll let Emily bring up the rear on that.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
just
so
for
that
further-
they are two different things. The
Yeah.
maintenance is totally different than the local matches matching the grant for funding for construction. So they're two different things.
I thought the Friends were gonna pay for the whole thing, so I must be going blank here today.
Well,
When did we as a city, we've done our part. I mean, I'm not being icky here, but this is coming kind of a surprise.
well, I don't think anyone's saying, hey, Douglas, give us $10,000. I think that Emily mentioned this about a week or two ago, and she just said it could be $1,000, it could be $5,000, it could be $10,000. I mean, Douglas obviously has a trail that you've spent a lot of money on, and you are the smallest part of this connected trail that we're talking about. So, I mean, I just think you can have a conversation about what you feel comfortable doing.
Okay, and I get the skin in the game. We're trying to make this happen, and I'm sure our city would support something, but 10,000 or something, that just threw me way off.
Yeah, Kathy, I don't think anybody is saying that everybody has to put up 10,000.
Okay,
No.
thank
But
you. for the
you do have, each city for the MDOT process does have to have some sort of contribution, is what
Okay.
Emily told us.
Okay, thank
Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that for Kathy. Kathy, when we were talking, we're just, pulled a number out of the air, 10's a round number. It's just for a conversation. What we were kind of initially thinking is if we could all, pick a number and we all put that much in, and then that would be our skin. We all do it fair because it impacts all of us equally, whether it be, economic impact for Saugatuck and Douglas with all the riders coming to your businesses, and it goes through our area in our community. So we thought it would show to the state that we are all having the same skin in the game if we all pick one number and we all put it in.
Yes, thank you. That really helps me understand.
Yeah. Sorry, maybe we should have used a smaller number as the but that was just, something.
You really got our attention, Joe. You really got our attention.
I'm sorry I connected it with the maintenance because I just kind of saw them as the same, but now I understand maintenance is per city. Yep, got it.
Thanks, Kathy. Ryan?
Hey, everyone. Perhaps if Emily could just remind us why the matching fund is required. And then Emily, how significant is that as far as the points scored or just the review process? If knowing that the Friends of the Trail are committed to the remaining capital cost after a grant.
I have found that MDOT will always ask, why isn't the local government who's applying, why don't they have money, submitted to it? So that just comes up every time. A lot of times I've gotten around it, but sometimes it's just having that line item that says the townships, contributed and the city contributed. It helps. It sort of takes that away. They can't say they didn't do it. Yes, the Friends are fundraising, but the government also is, really supports this project and wants to see it happen.
Great,
So-
thank you.
And I do see with Douglas, there's such a little piece of it, you probably, it's sort of, if you want to come in all together with the same amount, or, Douglas, it is such a small piece of this, it could be less. Or I think that the two main areas are the city and the township of Saugatuck.
Okay, thanks. And then Brenda, Marcy, Holly, if I could, just a couple questions and maybe some comments.
Right.
You had mentioned something about the community foundation. I wasn't tracking what was that, what that comment was about. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Okay.
You know what? Joe, I'll have you, do you mind explaining that? This to hold the funds, but go ahead.
Yeah, like Brendan mentioned, the grant money would be held by the community foundation instead of one municipality. It'd just be in their account and we would make the payments through them, or however the funding mechanism for that grant. If some grants they give it in a lump sum, and some of them they charge it and then you get paid back. But we thought the community foundation would be the good middle person for that to facilitate it.
Can I explain a little that both the TAP grant through MDOT and the trust funds grant are both reimbursable grants. So they're not, you're not holding any money, and it only can go to the government entity. So the money that Friends raise, that's a different story, and how that's done, and any other match money that's raised could go through that. But that's why it has to be an Act 51 agency. So it has to be the road commission or one of the cities that apply for TAP. And then the trust fund, the money would be reimbursed through both the township and the city. And there would be a different billing that would go with that for you to get reimbursed.
Yeah, great. Thanks. That's super helpful. And, probably the city's contribution would, I don't know, we can work through those details, but probably would go to the foundation since the Friends group is paying. Well, anyways, details. But okay, Joe, I hope that alleviates the.
Yeah, that because every grant is differently. Sometimes they forward it, and because when we were chatting, we were like, well, who's this going to be holding? And for the bank, well, they could do the bank.
Nah,
So
it's not going to be.
If it's as we identified that Saugatuck is the Act 51, and you guys submit the bill in, well, then we're fine with that.
Yeah, cool. And then in regards to the maintenance and operation agreement, I think Joe Fry has done the most work on this to date. And, just kind of thinking this through a little bit, it does make sense that each municipality will own and maintain its own assets. I think, as Joe said, if any individual municipality wanted to elevate their trail with a higher level of maintenance, then they'll be responsible, for that. So, but there's lots of ways to slice that pie, and Emily has started sharing some other agreements, and she's done that in the past. So I guess one thing that does need to be worked out with the kind of operations and maintenance agreement or understanding is kind of like level of service or use in the winter months, as an example. Is this going to be used as for cross country skiing, what have you? So that's probably a detail that needs to be worked out jointly. And then as far as like the time, so what I hear the township saying is that they need to start getting the design in front of their board for some decisions, and then a report that comes along with that. Right. So I think we're pretty much getting aligned on a scope of preference option one. So Larry, I guess I don't know how far out we are to starting to go into board meetings and doing our dance.
Yeah, we
Again-
just have one meeting before the October 13 meeting, and that is, or the October 13 deadline. And that meeting is September 8. So we're really pushing a tight timeline for the township to make an approval of the report that somebody's going to write. And I suggest it be Joe, to be in front of our board by the 8th.
And I'm gonna guess you guys don't like having special meetings.
It's very difficult to get it work around everybody's schedule.
Understood.
Our October meeting, because I was hoping the deadline would be towards the end of the month, but the October 13th is also our board meeting. So really, we only have the 8th to get this all kind of, we have like 2 days to get it all wrapped up and everyone to, give a thumbs up. But what we can do is we can give the report and get it on our agenda, and then on the trail committee can approve that as the report, and we can send it out to everyone. And then each council can just approve that, the draft interlocal that Emily provided is very clear. The only thing it really says is we maintain our own jurisdiction. Now talking about if we're plowing or stuff, well, that's our jurisdiction to pick from. That's why we're going down this avenue and not a different one. For my approach, because my board might want cross-country skiing and Douglas might want, it to be plowed, but that's one of the cons, I guess, to this approach versus, a different approach, which would take a lot longer to hash out. So if the committee is fine with that, I can write the report. I have all the information. If I need anything to clarify, I can get it from Holly and Emily, and that we can get that for agenda, and then have the committee next week approve it, and it can then go to each council to approve and stamp, and we'll be all ready for the administrative stuff for the 13th.
Go ahead, Brenda.
I assume, okay, the 13th of October is the absolute submission deadline, correct? So, pardon me?
It is.
So I don't know, because I don't know anything about these grants or Michigan, the state of Michigan, but there still will probably be some work for us to do. You may need, correct, Emily? You and Larry might need other information and that kind of stuff from us. So it would behoove all of us to at least wrap this one part up, I think. And that's why we are trying to, get a little more clarity on what we put in there. So I just think that there might, is that usually the case, Emily?
It is.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
we need to get a good application in that they'll accept. There are sometimes we can add pieces later. So,
Oh,
if there are certain pieces, certain things we can't add later. We have to have agreement. Like one of the things we will need is a letter from the road commission saying that the city, if the city's the applicant, is allowed to build within their right of way. So we need that because that's a control of the land. I'm not sure about Douglas, since the bridge, I don't know how that works between Douglas and the city with the bridge, because a little bit of it is in the bridge. We might need that letter from Douglas as well. So those are a couple of key things. Like if you couldn't get agreement for the match right away, we could probably add that later. The maintenance we do need something that states who's going to maintain it. It could change, and we could add that, but we need something. So it's good to be hashing all this out, just like you said. It's the hard stuff. We're working on the hard stuff now.
True, true. Is it possible that we can go back and forth on these issues and maybe have a quick meeting on Friday to get something to you, Joe? Is that how this should work? Cindy, you're better at this than I am. Do we actually need a resolution that goes to the township? Or a draft?
I think we just need a report. And I
report?
think, Joe, I think that's what it says in our resolution, that it's a report. Is that correct, Joe?
Yep, so the resolution asks for a report about what we are doing that meets all these items, which we have now addressed. The local match, we can just note in the report that, each community is, we're going to continue that part. But also the interlocal government agreement, which simply states that we're all maintaining our own jurisdiction, the section of trail within our jurisdiction. It shouldn't be more than that. And then that can get approved next Friday. And now we'll just put that in our packet and we're all good to go. And our joint resolution has now checked every box that has been required. The committee will then just keep working out the local match and the finalizing of the grant stuff. So we can be done with the resolution at this point, and now we're just, a steering committee for the grant process.
I see. Okay, Ryan?
Yeah, Joe, when you say report outside of what's in the interlocal agreement or whatever we call that resolution, are you're looking for a design report too, right? With a preferred option? You guys want to take a vote on the design, right? Okay.
For our section, as the interlocal, for us, there are no options. There's one option. It's coming up from Maple to Old Allegan and then going through our cemetery and park. So we got that all hunky dory.
Okay, the committee take a vote on that? Sorry, forgive me if I'm thinking out. Did the committee take a vote on the only option that's available to the township, or you're saying that's not even needed because there are no alternate options?
Well, this part in the report, so that we can just kind of keep the ball rolling, I'm recommending that we write a report up and saying that, that we have majority of this all figured out. The only thing that we're still talking about as a committee is the option for you guys, which is really between you and Douglas to figure out in the fire department. And then the local match, and we will come at a later date with that one.
Okay, and just to be clear, is the expectation that C2A was going to join the township at their meeting? Because you guys are virtual right now, right?
Yeah. So I don't, because it's only one flat plan, I think myself, if, unless C2AE wants to be there, I can explain that, this is the direction, because the township's plan, we've seen this map before, so everyone's, pretty fine with where it's going, I would assume, unless Brenda and Cindy have any, thoughts on that.
I think that Joe said it just straight out what it is. There's not any options in the township. It's just, and the tricky part was, of course, getting across the bridge and connecting with Douglas. Ours kind of was the easy trail.
Got it. Understood. Thank you. And then so for Holly, I guess the committee still needs to vote officially on option 1 versus option 2. Larry, is that Emily, is that your understanding?
You should at some point, yes. Whether or not you need to do that today, doesn't sound like you need to do that for the township. So you could do that, get together again next week if you wanted to. I'd like to kind of get through the cost implications before you vote, but it could be today, or you could get back together next week. But it does need to be done fairly soon, because we do have the other councils that we'll need to address.
Okay.
Well, and sorry, can I add, I think it would be good. We need to know what we're applying for. So it's like we're supporting grants, but we don't know what we're applying for in whole yet. The township knows the piece in theirs, but it's still one grant. So I do think we need some decisions in how much we're applying for. We haven't made that decision yet. And the other piece, Joe, I think, and I can send you a draft resolution, is part of what Larry and I proposed, which we don't know everyone's agreed to, is that the township would apply for a trust fund grant for $300,000. So that's part of your match coming in. So that should be in a resolution that you plan to do that. So that way MDOT can see, where the funding's coming from. So yeah, I knew the township, I looked at the township meeting and I knew it was going to be tight. And I actually think I put down somewhere that I thought we would need a special meeting at the end of the month, because I didn't think we'd have all these answers this week.
And Emily, just to clarify it for the trust fund, from my understanding, those are due in April, correct?
Correct.
So in the report that we can approve is, yes, we will apply as the township for the trust fund, because that will have to go through our park commission. That we, the township board will accept the report that saying, yes, we will apply for this. And then we can still work out the details as the committee, of course, the end of the month, because this is for our internal stuff. So we can check off our internal boxes and get the maintenance stuff for it. We still have like a whole month before the grant deadline is due. And we'll just put in the report that the committee will approve next week that there will be an appendix to this report with all this other stuff that we're going to do. So we still have time. We just need it for our part for the interlocal so that you guys can get it in time for October. Because for us, the more other finer details, well, how much are we doing in this grant? It's a grant, it's free money. However we get it, we're happy. Like the public said, just get it done. Well, we want to get it done. We can hash that out later. We just have to get this part done to check the boxes. Every report, a lot of times they have addendums. So you can always add more.
Well, I just really want to thank Cindy and Joe and Brenda for bringing this up this week and jumping on this and finding a path. And Emily, I just hope that you can work closely with Joe and we can make sure that they're approving everything that they need. That we just stay on the same page. So far, so good. Okay, Ryan?
Oh, I just was looking at the agenda. I don't think the committee is prepared to make a motion on a preferred option today. So we'll definitely want to get that added to the agenda for Friday, your next meeting. And then Emily and Larry, just kind of a general time frame as far as the city council goes. Their workshop in late September is on 9/22, which is a Wednesday. And there'd be more time to discuss the plans in depth at that meeting. Unless council wants to hold a special meeting, which is certainly a possibility as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would like to, I think, defer I would like to defer voting on the routes. And I also would like a little bit more information about maintenance, possible maintenance costs, depending on, that might help us make some decisions. Kathy, did you have a comment?
Yes, I was pretty much going to say what you just said. I think we need just a little more before we vote today, but I also had a question maybe for Larry or Emily on the whole idea of the public input. We have the feedback today, it's in our packet, but the idea is once you get the public feedback to analyze it and say, okay, we're going to change some things, or we can't go forward, or we can go forward. And here we're already talking about voting before the public input's even completely in. That's after the library closing thing, whatever. But even if it were in, what do you do with it? Is it just majority wanted, what they wanted and we go with it? And that's pretty much what the committee does because the public had a majority on something? Or is public input integrated in any other way? It's hard to explain what I'm trying to say, but.
No, I think we
It
understand
seems like
exactly
a little
what
vote of who came,
public
It's
input
a
is. A
great question.
portion.
I think Emily or Larry can really clarify that.
Yeah, public input is a portion of the decision-making process. So you as a committee are kind of have the responsibility to take the input along with the cost information and other background information that's been provided, emergency services input. So all of that goes together in making your decision.
Okay.
Now, I think for the options that were presented, we kind of went into this saying, we feel that either of these is a valid option and can be supported both through engineering and depending on public input, how it turned out. But my feeling is either one of these is a justifiable option. And that, so you can use that public input as another tool in making the decision. But the public input does not say that a majority, just because that's what the public preferred, is that's the way you need to go. I think you have justification to go either way based on the results of the public response we have so far. In understanding there may be some more, but I don't think you're going to get more. I mean, you've got 52 already, and if you get a few more, more than a few more, I'd be surprised. And I'd be surprised if it really changes anything from what you've already received.
Okay. Yeah, it didn't seem right that it would just be a simple majority. There's so many other things, and I wondered when that discussion were to happen. You clarified. Thank you.
Holly,
Yep, go ahead, Ken.
I was rifling through some old files here, getting back to the question of maintenance. And back in January of 2019, there was a Blue Star Trail maintenance proposal for the city of Saugatuck that defined what the Friends would do and where we hold the funds and so on. And I mean, that would resolve a lot of my concern about the uncertainty of the maintenance issue. So could we check that out, maybe Ryan, and see if that's still valid to proceed with something like that? Am I making sense?
Mhm.
I hear you, Ken. Certainly can pull that out, and perhaps it's another item that we can add to the agenda on Friday. From the Friends' perspective, any possible contributions to long-term maintenance. I will mention that pretty early on in discussions with the Friends group, when we were trying to get the initial paperwork together, they had mentioned that they were fundraising for capital costs, and they couldn't pay. They needed to take care of that before they started to think about long-term maintenance costs. But it's certainly
Sure,
worth asking
but-
the question and pulling out the old agreement in 2019. I can track that down.
Yeah, I can send it to you. I mean,
Okay, great.
it was negotiated with the Friends, so,
Got it. Thank you.
okay.
Yep, this is John.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Ken, it is our position that we are fundraising to build the upfront costs of the trail. As you recall, we had made an offer to the city at that point in time you're referring to, based on a budget in place at that point in time and a $200,000 pledge. And we received no reply basically to that offer. So, as costs have gone up, we refocused our efforts on building the trail, and that's where we are.
Okay, thank you, John.
I do have some information for you based on what we know of the route to be on maintenance costs, if you want to take a look at it.
Sure.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I had it up before, but the conversation was going in a. There you go. You see that?
Mhm.
So we have a maintenance calculator that actually the Tart Trails put together for their trails when they were evaluating them, and they we've taken that and then we actually have changed it and added a little bit of information. The one thing I didn't know is Tart Trails includes snow removal costs, and I didn't know if you wanted that to be included or not. So right now it is included, but you could take that out. So I separated the three areas, and what's hard with maintenance is they're all tiny little sections. So the numbers don't come up to be very much, but we know if you're only going to maintain a half a mile of trail, your cost is probably more because you're really, maintaining a larger area because you have other sections of trail. But of this new trail, so, this is the Douglas portion we have on here as an on-road shared roadway. And we have, how much mileage, annual maintenance cost, so it only comes out to be about $60. And then we also like to always look at thinking about long-term costs, because a lot of times we only look at the yearly cost, but what about in 10 years when something big has to be done? So we added something in for more preventative maintenance, and this is this other number here is $14. And then this is the snow removal. And that came straight from Tart Trails. I don't have a lot of experience with snow removal, but that's what they utilize is $2,000 per mile. So so that comes out to $213 because it's just, it's not even a 1/10 of a mile long. The city of Saugatuck, we have the shared roadway portion. Let me see, sorry. Jumped a little bit. And we have just, just asphalt shared use trail, annual maintenance costs. And let's see what else. We have railings that are not part of boardwalk that are going to have a little additional maintenance cost, as well as some retaining wall, which doesn't really have much of a cost on an annual basis, but it might in that preventative maintenance. So we added some numbers in. So the city of Saugatuck, it's using our calculator, but this is just such a small area. It was, just for this part was about $1,230. But that also includes snow removal.
This is Joe.
Yep.
In this maintenance calculator, are you putting in capital replacement costs?
Not replacement, but like, I found what happens a lot is you have your general cost to mow and sweep your asphalt trail. And you have that's what that annual cost is here. But then what if the asphalt, you have like a sinkhole and you have to go and fill it in? Well, all of a sudden that they're bigger pieces. Maybe you have to cut something out and replace it. So it's not replacement costs in 20 years. It's those bigger capital items that aren't really done annually. Maybe you need to crack seal, do crack sealing. And so that's not done annually, but you some people like to save over time to get to it. So that's what that number is. Does that make sense?
So that's what you have there in the preventative. That's what you're.
Yep, exactly.
That's setting for the capital cost of replacing, a section that breaks or something.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Because honestly, we used to not really look at that number, and then communities would just be hit with these huge dollars. How are we supposed to fix this? So we're trying to get people to really think about what the overall costs are going to be. And I recommend people, I know your budgets don't always work that way, but somehow to have a budget system where you can put it into a fund so you have that available. Let's see. So Saugatuck Township, it's about the same size, so about $2,300. But again, that includes snow removal. So that's what we're looking at for these small portions of the trail.
Can you send that calculator to us, Emily?
I'm sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
And do you want me to keep the snow removal in there or?
For now.
Yeah, it would be good for now, just so that, if we're maintaining each, as municipality, well, then my board can see and I can use whatever calculator is in here. And I can here's a rough number. And if they want to do it annually, well, then they can choose to do it or not for our complete trail. So if I could get the Excel, that would be great.
Yep, I will. I will send that to you. I have a whole list of things to send. So
Yes, send it. Send it to me as well. I can send it out to the committee, but that is a very helpful tool.
okay. And then I even have things on there like we don't have, but you could fill in later, like if you have a trailhead, maintenance costs for that, things like that. So
Okay, so we can refine that as we go, but we have a tool, which is great. Kathy, did you have a comment?
No, I forgot to lower that hand from before.
Okay.
Holly, this is Richard. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Richard.
I just wanted to interject one thing. It strikes me that it might be very helpful if Emily and Larry could put in writing a list of what the governing bodies need to approve over the next, month or before the grant deadline, So they just have it and they can clearly refer to it, that they know these are the points that have to be agreed upon and put in a resolution or some other form of writing.
Okay, thank you. And I've also sent Emily a copy yesterday of the resolution. So I'll resend that out to everybody, and we'll make a list. We'll just have a punch list.
So it just brings up, so we can't decide on the route yet, because just like I think it was Kathy said, like we don't have all the public input yet. So it would be, that wouldn't be a smart thing to do. But it's hard to know exactly what we need until we know what the route is as well. So they go together, and I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about the funding. So, because that makes a big difference on who's applying. So is it for sure the city of Saugatuck is willing to be the applicant and everyone's okay with that for the TAP grant? I guess I just want to make sure that is something that we can move ahead with, because that's a big piece on what resolutions we need from who on the other owners.
Hey, Ryan, this is Joe. When is your guys' next board meeting?
Great question, Joe. Stand by.
Because one of my suggestions for the committee is this first initial report just kind of addresses these things for the route and the community here in the selection portion, and in this upcoming report is each community accepts the report and yep, we agree that the city of Saugatuck is going to be the Act 51. That way each board, because we are in this committee are just representatives of our community and not voting on behalf of our community, and give that approval to allow each board to vote in the next couple of weeks to give that thumbs up. Yep, we're fine with that. You know, I don't think anyone here is going to have an issue, but I can't speak for the other, Douglas.
I think the trouble with that for us, Joe, for the city of Saugatuck, is that unlike the township, who only has one option, the city has two options to committee has to recommend one of the two options. And I think the council would appreciate knowing the maintenance costs associated with the preferred option. So there's a couple more steps that we need to take. So I don't think a general report is going to be of much value, but we could at least take the decision-making point on being the lead applicant for the TAP funding at their next meeting, which is Monday, the 11th. They have a workshop on the 8th and the meeting on Monday, the 11th. So I'm making a note on that. Holly, let me know if you disagree, or Ken.
Ryan, are you sure about that date? I have it as Monday the 13th.
All right, 13th. I said 11th. You're correct, Ken.
Okay.
Thank you.
You had me there for a minute.
And Ryan, I was referring to not the route. Like this initial report is to address the majority of the goals in the township's route, but we will note in the report that the city of Douglas and Saugatuck still have to approve an additional report that addresses your guys' route and maintenance issues. But we all agree to this interlocal agreement that we all maintain it, what's in our jurisdiction, so that you guys can figure out what exactly at a later council meeting, because that, for us, we don't care how you guys get up to Maple Street. That's up to you. So it allows you guys that wiggle room. I was referring to in this report, and if we can all quickly approve the Act 51, that you guys will act as the Act 51 applicant, you can check that box sooner, and the township can give their thumbs up for the formal approval for our meeting. So the route part and that maintenance stuff, we know we're going to still have to do, but there'd be that addendum to this first report. So there's two reports that will come. Does that make sense to everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So it gives everyone, for the two cities to figure out those other options, but allows us, the township, to, yep, we're fine with all of this big stuff that impacts us. Now it's you two, and, you know, have fun hankering that one out. And we will sign on the dotted line when we have to at that point. So at least it takes us out of that running the clock out. We've done our part and allows you guys to keep rolling on that issue. Is that fine with everyone?
Sounds good to me.
Perfect. So I will get the initial report ready so that we can all, you know, give that thumbs up for the committee's official. And then, you know, Ryan can write the next report for the addendum.
Thanks, Joe.
Or Douglas. I don't mind doing your guys' work too. You know, but
Holly, how in depth have the maintenance discussions and the importance of uniformity and maintenance? Has that been a topic? You know, essentially plowing versus not plowing, or?
We really haven't talked about it. The first time that we talked about maintenance really was last week, and we just touched on it. So, I mean, that's something that we need to decide. I think that's a good idea. That's something that Richard mentioned, that we might want to have sort of a standard for the trail, that everybody decides that we're going to, you know, plow or not plow. And sort of to what level, because obviously we don't want a connected trail that has, you know, different standards for everyone. So
just one thing too is that Lake Town is a part of this trail system, and they're not at this conversation. So, you know, that might be, you know, a two-part solution. We have this initial interlocal, and then we reach out to Lake Town for a larger interlocal on, you know, standards. Because we're only a small part of this potential very long trail. But if we were going with the path of, you know, local independence, you know, we might need to get this first part for this grant part, and we can have a longer conversation with the four of us going forward.
I understand that. John, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was going to add that a couple of years ago, we put together a maintenance agreement that was really designed primarily to get points from the trust fund grant. But I can share that it did not take away the independence of each community to do their own maintenance, but it allowed for, you know, some synergies on bigger projects and things that kind of helped us get points that I can share with people as well.
Okay. That sounds good. And Emily also has shared maintenance agreements with the township, and we'll share those with everyone from Iosco, Boyne Valley Trailway, and Iron Bell Mountain. So we have a couple of boilerplates or samples we can look at. Okay. All right. I know we were kind of all over the place, but that seems like we got a lot done. Right
Yeah.
now. So, Larry, what else do we need to talk about?
I certainly like to go through the funding again before you make a decision on which alternates to choose,
Okay.
because obviously that will be key. So I have two exhibits that
Want me to share?
I think I can, Emily. I'm going to give it a
Okay.
try. Are
Okay,
you seeing my screen?
Not yet.
nope.
Okay, I got to share the right screen then. Do-do-do-do.
We can see it now.
Good. Okay.
No, we're seeing your Zoom login though. You shared the wrong page.
Yeah, this is the wrong thing. Okay, are you seeing a funding?
Yep.
There we go. Okay, I'm going to go back to the other one first because you've seen this one before. So this is where I say it's important when you're considering which alternative to choose. And we actually have two alternatives, one for Washington to Lake and one for Lake to Maple. So I tried to give you the information that you would need to make this decision. So this one you've seen before. We talked about 50% tap, which we think makes you very competitive, versus 60% tap, which may be competitive. And if that's all you can afford, then obviously that makes the choice for you. There's no fixed amount, but Emily can give you some guidance on that. But obviously the 60%, the 50% tap means more local match. It gains you more points or probably better scoring. But if you can't afford to do it, then that also plays into it. So based on the information we provided, then this 3-lane section from Washington to Lake, and then the more expensive section from Lake to Maple, the at-grade boardwalk, which from the public information meeting seemed to be the preferred option. Again, I think we could make a case for either one of those, but this is how that spreadsheet is based. And so if you're going to apply for 60% tap, you're talking about $405,000 in local share. Now, that is also where if each community is going to contribute some portion, that would come out of the local share, and it would be nice to know that. So if each community, or say Saugatuck Township and the city of Saugatuck, agree to participate up to $10,000, and say the city of Douglas $5,000, I'm just throwing numbers out there, then that goes into the whole equation of that 405,000. And so then that leaves, if we're talking 25,000 from the communities, that's 380 from the friends. And so basically all 3 or 4 entities that would make a commitment as part of this application that this is the intended funding breakdown to make up that local share. And Emily can talk more about, the pluses and minuses of doing that, but that's where you're talking about the skin in the game. They're going to love to see the friends contribution because that's a community effort, but there's also a benefit for each individual entity, local unit of government to make some contribution. You don't have to, but that's something you really need to talk about and decide, and whether or not you can go for 405 or 587.5, or somewhere in between. Okay, so then the next option is if you were to choose the traffic signal. I'm going to send this out to you, Holly, and you can distribute this as well. So I redid the numbers. And again, we talked about that traffic signal being an extra $150,000, of which only about 30,000 would be participating, or 20% of the cost of the signal. So the numbers shake out quite differently, obviously, because now we've got 120,000 that's not participating, that is totally local share for the traffic signal portion. And so for the 60% TAP grant, your local share now becomes 533,000. And if you go to 50% TAP, it's 717,000. So part of your decision on which option you choose is which is can you afford? If you cannot come up with $533,000 as local share, then if you choose that option, you're probably going to have to wait and apply when you can commit that amount of funding.
Hey, Larry, I have a question.
Okay.
The local share, as you are showing the TAP and trust fund grant, is that will that local share be able to double count for the match for both grants, or are we just looking at the match for the TAP grant?
This is total project match. So
Okay.
This is in order to fund the entire project. So we've taken into account, we're assuming that both City of Saugatuck and Saugatuck Township are going to get 300,000 trust fund grant. That's the max that you can get. So we're counting on that as part of our budget. And then here's the TAP up at the top. So this total local share is for the entire project. Now I did break it down per unit of government, but that may not mean much. It's because we're not asking each local unit of government to contribute that amount, right? So we're looking at this as one overall project, and this is how the numbers shake out. So Emily, anything to add to that?
No, you did a good job.
Okay, so, and then I think for the township, the one thing I'd like to see in their resolution, if they're not going to meet again before the application, is perhaps to consider contributing up to $10,000, or Emily, if you have a better number, but you had thrown that out last time, toward the local share match. Does that make sense to do that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then City of Saugatuck might do the same at their next meeting, not actually ask for a commitment, but at least bring up that, you know, the committee would like you to consider doing. And so if you do an up to amount, if the other communities don't agree, Joe, then, you know, perhaps then the Saugatuck Township might not agree either.
Yes, we can work something out like that. But we have a lot of time to talk about that one.
Okay, so you and the committee, I mean, this is really a committee decision as to if you're going to ask each community or local unit of government to contribute in what amount. But we're just kind of planting the seeds of what we think is beneficial to the application. All right, I think that's all I have for, is that everybody clear on then this for the funding portion?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Did anybody else have questions? Joe, are you good?
I'm good. I will get a draft report wrapped around for this initial stuff for everyone for next week so that my board can get that stuff. And I'll put some language together for the match stuff to give some wiggle room for this continued conversation.
Okay, I really appreciate, again, I appreciate Cindy and Brenda and Joe, you all really stepping up this week and, you know, that we're really getting into these points and staying on schedule. Thank you. Okay, Larry, is there anything else we need to talk about?
I think, let's see, there was only one more thing. I'm not sharing again, but so the public input at the end of that form, we've gone through over a couple of times. We had public meetings identified prior to October 13th. We had City of Douglas October 4th, info provided the Wednesday prior. City of Saugatuck September 27th or October 11th, but it sounds like you're saying perhaps participating in a work session might be better. So I guess Ryan, Holly, you guys will have to let me know which is your preference. And then Saugatuck Township, we had said we'll need a special meeting, but obviously if it can be taken care of next week or the following week, then so much the better. And then we still would like, if we need to participate in an Allegan County Road Commission meeting to get a letter of support and also the agreement that it can be constructed in their right of way.
Okay. All right.
So Holly, we had talked last time that both Emily and I are not available next week, but based on the information you have, I think it would be very beneficial for you as the committee to get together and talk about these alternatives and talk about the maintenance again, and then just make sure everybody is on board. And if you can make a decision at that time, so much the better. But if not, then we were going to have a meeting the following Friday as well.
Okay.
But you're right. I mean, this is the heavy lifting part. This is where the rubber meets the road and the decisions need to be made. And because we really want a strong support when the committee goes to each municipality that, yes, this is what we are recommending and these are the reasons why. So there's not an awful lot of debate about going back and forth.
Right. No, I'm actually thankful that we jumped right into this. because I think somebody else said this does get us all working towards the goal a little faster, and we all have eyes on these items. So it's good. Okay. I think that's good. Does anybody else have anything you want to ask about, or I think we should let's reserve next Friday. I don't know how I feel about meeting to discuss routes and maintenance without the engineer. That's a bit of I'm not sure about that, but we can discuss that. I would say just hold next Friday, and I'll loop back with Larry and Emily and figure that out.
And Holly, I mean, if it were really important and you wanted to meet and get it done next Friday, I'm going to be in Colorado, so 2 hours, which way? 2 o'clock would be what time in Colorado?
Noon, I think, right?
Noon, okay. I could maybe make that work.
Larry, you can have a glass of wine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're going to be out there for a wedding, and Friday night's the rehearsal dinner and stuff. But yeah, I could probably tune in on noon on Friday if it were important.
Okay, and I'm just, do we need to meet next week to stay on our time frames?
Next week, I'll just add that. This is Kathy. I cannot come next Friday at 2. So
Is it possible that
Monday or any other day? I can't even phone in. So
okay. Is it possible that we can have this discussion in 2 weeks, or do we need to meet next week to stay on track?
I think you can do it in 2 weeks if you come prepared to make a decision. I mean, I think that's kind of getting to the end. Emily, you disagree?
The
No, I
problem with
agree.
that is it's after our board meeting.
That was my thought. It's the township meeting is before that.
Yeah, because,
So like, how about Thursday?
well, this is Joe. What we've talked about is the maintenance costs and the final route for Saugatuck and Douglas. We know you guys need to still talk that one out, and that can come in 2 weeks for the maintenance costs. That's fine for us. We just need the committee to send the report for the township's portion and the interlocal agreement that simply states that we pay for our portion, you pay for your portion, and Douglas pays for theirs. Sorry, I was going south as I was thinking. And that's simple. That's all we need to check the box. And then we can continue meeting with more details with the engineer in 2 weeks, so that Douglas and Saugatuck can finalize that little bit of detail right there at the bridge.
Okay, so Joe, what I'm hearing you say is that you have enough info to have your report completed by the 3rd, and you don't necessarily need us on the 3rd.
That's next Friday.
Correct.
I would still need you as the committee to submit to approve the report. So not everyone has to be there. You just have to have a majority. Yep. We agreed to send this to every council,
Okay.
which for Saugatuck and Douglas council, the route that is being presented doesn't impact you. It just impacts us as a township, but we agree to the Act 51, who's the engineer. Yep.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff we've already agreed to. We just need to formally have it, and we'll come back with an additional report later after the 2 weeks or 3 weeks, however it is for you guys. And then at that point, our board will, accept the report. And because it doesn't impact us, but it does impact you guys.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we can have a short meeting next Friday to approve that report as a committee to discuss and approve it. And then possibly we can, if all the dates align, then possibly we can put up the final decision for routes, and we can get a little bit more information. That gives everybody time to look at maintenance, talk about matching. Does that sound reasonable to everyone? That's sort of how this sounds like it's lining up. Does that sound okay to everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, Holly, I do think that works because it gives us a council workshop after next Friday to discuss that if we choose to do that. And that would be before then the committee would come back and make a final recommendation. I think, and then we'd have another council meeting the following Monday.
Yeah,
To act on that.
I agree, Ken. Okay. That sounds good. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add? Is everyone okay if I move on to public comments at this time?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. If there are any members of the public who want to weigh in right now on the trail, just limit your comment to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the public, from the public, that would like to make a comment? Does anyone see anyone? No? Okay, do we have any committee member closing comments at this time? Nope, we just need to get our Labor Day on. Okay, if there's nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call to adjourn. Brenda Marcy,
Yes.
Kathy Moradian,
Yes.
Cindy Osman,
Yes.
Ken Truster,
Yes.
Jerry Donovan,
Yes.
John Adams.
Yes.
All right, and Richard, I think you're sort of with us, sort of not, but anyhow, I think he was with us by phone at times. Anyhow, thank you all. That was a lot of work. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for your help and the turnout at the open house. And we'll be in touch.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye all.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.